welcome to the CNBC-TV18 special. We're in conversation with Donna Karan, the founder of Donna Karan New York and DKNY Jeans. We're coming to you from the Mint Luxury Conference. Hi, Donna. Welcome to India.
Oh, thank you.
What brings you to India?
A luxury conference. But I love your country. I love the artisans of the country. I love the people of the country, and it's very inspirational.
I know you sold your business last year, but supposing you hadn't sold your business, would you have been inspired by this trip to maybe come out with a new line?
Well, what I was doing, I had Urban Zen, which I've had for 10 years, which is a work of putting philanthropy and commerce together. It's been a desire that I've had for many years. In preserving culture, in integrative healthcare, using what you're quite familiar with is yoga,
yes,
meditation, aromatherapy, and palliative care and nutrition in hospitals and in the healthcare system. And also working with children and bringing meditation and yoga to the schools. But in the preservation of cultures, working with artisans throughout the world, and I think that's probably what I've realized, you know, so much about India, and I was so inspired for so many years ago when I came here. So traveling the world and working with artisans has been a passion of mine for many, many years. And doing Donna Karan, DKNY, and Urban Zen, at this stage of my life, I had to put two aside to concentrate on Urban Zen.
And why did you decide that Urban Zen is the way to go?
I felt there was a change happening. It was not only about dressing people, but addressing.
Yeah.
You know, and every time I'd have a woman in a dressing room, she'd tell me about her mother, her father, you know, her friend, and this was happening and that was happening, and the world was in such chaos. And I've always felt that it needed to be a change in fashion. I've been a major proponent of showing in season to the consumer. I felt that we were presenting fashion too early in the game, particularly in communication today. Customers being very confused by, you know, seeing a fall collection when they're not going to get it for 6 months from now, but they see it on social media and they say, I want it now.
Yeah. In fact, I was asking Calvin Klein about this as well, that do you think the advent of social media and just the World Wide Web has made the runway redundant?
What did you say about the runway?
Has it become redundant in the times that we live in today? Because, you know, you've got the internet, you've got social media. Do you still need the runway?
Well, the problem is that taking the runway on social media, which is giving somebody what you're seeing on a runway doesn't happen for 6 months.
Yeah.
So the consumer is so used to buying immediately, buying in, you know, season for the moment. So there's a confusion that's happened. And also the retailers, particularly in the United States and in Europe, they were selling or bringing the product to the stores too early.
Okay.
They were bringing spring in when it was snowing out, you know, and summer in when it's fall in when it's so hot. And the customer is learning to buy when they want,
on Amazon,
in the moment that they want it.
Yeah.
So I think there's been a major change, and in the bag and the shoe industry, that was something that they could wear anytime.
Right.
But when it came to the clothing, it became a whole other story. And I've been an advocate for many, many years about catering to the customer and talking about, you know, doing clothes in season, showing in season.
But, you know, that's in brick and mortar stores, right? But on e-commerce companies, you can buy, like you said, when you want, where you want. So before you sold your company, did you make sure that your labels were addressing that?
For Donna Karan and DKNY, they were going by the system. And when I started Urban Zen, I had realized at that point there was another communication. There was a way of talking to the consumer directly, you know, in season. So I don't do fashion shows. We do go on e-commerce during season. And that's how I've approached it, but also with a philanthropic point of view of dressing and addressing the consumer.
So let's talk about that philanthropic view that you get into Urban Zen while you sell your clothes. How does it work exactly?
Well, originally it started as a philanthropic passion and desire. and we did a 10-day conference on healthcare, because I said, where's the care in healthcare? You know, there's the Eastern medicine and Western medicine, and it wasn't connecting.
Yeah.
And where there were so many possibilities of caring for the patient, that wasn't happening. My husband had lung cancer. My friends had cancer all over the place, and I was realizing that what was happening in hospitals was not really catering to the patient. So
that's a palliative care company.
So we did a 10-day forum with doctors. Deepak Chopra was there, both the Eastern doctors and the Western, and came up with the Urban Zen Integrative Therapist Program. At the time, people would come down to Urban Zen, which was my husband's studio. He was an artist and a sculptor. And they said, well, Donna, where's the clothes? And I said, okay. And they wanted me to do a collection. You know, the customer was looking while they were at the studio, which was downtown on Greenwich and Charles, that I should have clothes to sell. So I was both dressing and addressing the consumer. But not only clothes, because I work with artisans all over the world. So I do furniture, I do jewelry, just about everything. Work in Bali, work in India.
That's what I was going to come to, that are you working with artisans in India?
Here we go. I'm wearing one right now. We sell amazing, yes, Urban Zen. We sell amazing scarves, one of a kind. You know, handloom, which is absolutely beautiful. I had met Sadhguru. He came to Urban Zen one day to do a training. I had actually met him through somebody else, and he walked in and I said, my God, where'd you get that scarf? He said, if you come to my ashram, I'll show you where the scarf comes from. So I went to the ashram, and the next thing I know, I was shopping for over 3 weeks. And then what I did, instead of doing clothes, I just created this entire store of scarves that I had purchased one by one. And I said, you could drape them, you can wrap them, you could do everything you can with a scarf, which I think is probably one of the most important things of what I, you know, totally inspired by India.
And in the studio you teach yoga as well, which comes from India.
Absolutely.
So how does it work? Like, you've got like yoga gurus?
I have my teacher, who I've had, Rodney Yee, for many, many years. I've studied Ashtanga. Since I was 18, I started doing yoga. Okay, that brings me to the next question. I was going to ask you. So I started when I was 18. It was just a few years ago. No, actually. Many, many years ago, before people were doing yoga. And I started doing it, but at that point I didn't realize the spiritual aspect of yoga. And then I started meditation. And for me, it was the centering of my soul, the centering of my body, you know, putting all the pieces together, that yoga was not always about wrapping your legs around your head, you know, and that yoga was basically sitting here and being in the present moment, you know, and being with yourself. The same with meditation. So when I started that, I realized that I wanted to bring that out into the world, to, you know, in the commercial way, to hospitals, to education. And what about yoga lattes, Pilates? Are you an advocate of that? Yes. I do a lot of Pilates as well. Okay. Maybe one day we're going to make you show us how good you are at the asanas. We'll maybe convince you to do that. But, you know, you sold your business last year, and I wanted to ask you, are you in a transitionary phase for that? Like, do they come to you and ask you, you know, are you doing a hand-holding? I have been thinking about walking, no, I sold my business over 15 years ago to LVMH. What had happened, my partners who started the Donna Karan company with me wanted to go public. And the company was growing and growing and growing and growing, and you really don't go public while you're in the process of growing. Yeah. You have to be pretty more established. And unfortunately, my husband was ill at the time, and he had cancer, lung cancer. And I said, honey, you can't leave me in this situation. There's no way, you know, I could do this. You know, living quarter by quarter. You know, it was very, very different when I had started the company, and the philosophy of fragrances and underwear and men's clothes and shoes and accessories and the woman of the world traveling all over the world. And there was so much that I wanted to say. I started Donna Karan, then I started DKNY, and then I had menswear. And it was an amazing operation, but going public shifted it completely. And that's when you decided that that's it? No, that's not when I started. So then my husband we sold the company to LVMH, and LVMH came in about 15 years ago, right when my husband passed away. And that's when I told them that I had this vision for Urban Zen. It kind of came to me, and I still, as clear as today, you know, it's about living, healthcare, education, and to have a community come together to create change.
Good.
So that was the concept of Urban Zen, and to have a retail store as well, which I did. And while I was running Urban Zen and Donna Karan and DKNY, you know, at a certain point your life, you realize, okay, where is my focus? And I was spending so much time because Urban Zen was a newborn baby, it needed more of my time. So I decided every year, I said, okay, this is my last collection, my last collection. And finally, I said it this year. I was writing my autobiography.
Which I believe we can buy on Amazon.
Yes, my journey. And I didn't realize while I was writing it, I wanted to actually offer to everybody what my life was all about, you know, and the journey of my life. And I didn't realize that I'd be leaving the company on the last chapter. So my last chapter was due. I was walking away from the company, and oh my God, what am I going to say? How do I do this?
So did you write the last chapter as it was happening, or did you?
Well, that was the problem, because as it was happening, my book was due.
Oh, so you had to keep changing it?
So I put in the book with another last chapter. But I said, I'm not finished with the book yet. And I couldn't tell anybody why I wasn't finished with the book. So I had to postpone it for a few months.
Yeah.
And when the final decisions were made, I wrote the last chapter.
And how does it feel now that you decided not to do any more collections?
It's difficult. I'm not going to say it isn't.
Because supposing you see something with your name on it and you don't like the line or the collection, then, you know, how are you going to deal with it?
Well, it's not that. They've closed the Donna Karan company, the collection business. DKNY still is operating.
That's what I'm saying. So your name is still there, right?
Yeah.
When you see it and you don't like it, what are you going to do?
I think they're doing a very good job. I think they're seeing, you know, from a different point of view, perhaps than I see it. And that's okay, because everyone, no matter who you bring in, whatever designer it is going to have their own interpretation of it. I think there's a passion for DKNY, you know, and the reason that DKNY is all over the world, you know, it's a very well-known name. And where Donna Karan was more of a luxury brand, you know, which was more isolated, you know, to a specific customer. So DKNY was just out there everywhere.
Now let's talk about your journey. How difficult was it to become known as Donna Karan, to have the line that you had, the company that you had? Tell us a bit about the struggle you had to go through.
It took many years. It really did. You know, having a vision. I think before I had done Donna Karan, I had worked for a company called Anne Klein. And at Anne Klein, I had done Anne Klein. I did Anne Klein 2, which was sort of the version of DKNY. And I had a vision for Donna Karan and what I wanted to do. So when I started the company, it was just a small little company, which was what I wanted, for me and my friends. And that was it. Well, I found out I had a lot more friends than I had expected. And everybody was wearing the clothes, including my daughter and her friends. And I said, this is ridiculous. You can't wear these clothes. You know, they're just for a certain group of people at a luxury level. But she would go to school in beaded long gowns with, you know, with boots. And because, you know, she's so used to seeing these clothes, you know, for her, it wasn't that do not touch me kind of look. She saw her mother's clothes, you know, her mother doing it, you know, took her mother's clothes, and that was the end of it. So I said, I have to do a collection, you know, for my daughter and her friends. And I needed a pair of blue jeans. And I could not find a pair of blue jeans, respectfully to Calvin. But I still needed a pair of jeans for myself and my own body. So I created DKNY that was for men and women, T-shirts, jeans, all the clothes that I hadn't done at Donna Karan. You know, the next collection to fill your wardrobe out completely.
And if I were to look at your past, if I could ask you, who have you enjoyed the most styling?
From a designer point of view? Who do I respect? Well, I love Rick Owens. I thought he, as contemporary, I had asked him, would he be interested in designing my collection when he first started. I said, we really have the same kind of feeling. I loved Halston, certainly loved Calvin and Ralph, and I so respect what designers do. You know, when I look at Chanel and I look at Karl Lagerfeld and Saint Laurent and Dior and Heidi Simonet, there are so many designers. I know what it's like to be a designer. I know how difficult it is. You know, I was just speaking to a designer from India today, and so refreshing to see how they're moving to another dimension, how he was telling me how he's working with the artisans here in India, people who don't have a job, you know, and struggling.
It's a dying art because it's all being replaced by machinery as well.
And that, for me, is why I did Urban Zen.
Correct.
Is because I wanted to create artisan product with the artisans around the world. You know,
and because Urban Zen has such a beautiful social message behind it, Donna, I wanted to ask you that would you define it as luxury? Like, what are your price points like?
It is of luxury base. It's clothing and lifestyle that lasts. It's not about a seasonal change. It's sort of like revisiting my 7 Easy pieces. You know, people would buy multiples of it. It is of quality fabric. It is not of a DKNY range. It is a very defined, it's my own retail stores, and I only have 4. Okay. And so it's a small.
Are you going to grow that, or are you going to stay?
Well, this year I've just opened. I've opened LA again. I'm opening the store in Manhasset and out on Long Island, and I'm opening, which is my first attempt, to go into a retail store at Bergdorf Goodman. They have given me, because Donna Karan is no longer there, you know, my customer is kind of like a little freaking out.
I'm sure you feel happy, some level, hearing that.
But no, because I think there's something that I do in clothes that understand a woman's body. Okay. Whatever her size will be, it's flexible. And I think that is something that it takes a woman to understand a woman.
I don't know how the men designers are going to react to that.
I believe that men designers need to have a muse who really feed them the information. I know because I put on my clothes. You know, I know when it fits. I know when it doesn't fit. You know, there's a physical connection to clothes that a woman can have. You know, and a man could fantasize, and some of the fantasies are absolutely wonderful. But at the same time,
it's
I think,
fantasy,
you know,
not a real woman.
Sometimes it's a fantasy, whereas a woman says, okay, what am I really going to wear to work? You know, how do I get up in the morning? You know, how am I getting... I'll never forget when I was in Paris for the first time when I was 18 years old with Anne Klein, and the French were showing, and the Americans were showing. And at that time, the French only had, you know, button and buttonholes, and they had people helping them get in the clothes, and they didn't understand that American clothes you just threw on. You know, go, oh my God, I can't believe you could do this. So there was a shift, and you know, now I think we have a universal language of clothes.
And that brings me to my next question. When you're talking about universal language, you know, a lot of people don't localize for the countries that they're selling in, and in this era of globalization,
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, you think that is what needs to be done?
Absolutely.
Because we are, for example, not going to wear those low cuts here. We're not going to wear the kind of clothes that are worn in Europe.
I love what you're wearing.
Thank you.
Love, love, love it. I mean, to me, the scarf is everything. You know, I might do it the American way. You know, when I take a piece of fabric and just kind of wrap it around, you know. So I've always been influenced by the culture. And I totally understand about preservation of culture. I'm a very strong proponent of it. I feel that in fashion, particularly, that, you know, whereas I used to go to London for one thing, and I used to go to Paris for another, and I used to go to Italy for another, everything is being homogenized. You know, I don't want to see the same store in every single place. When I walk into India, you know, it was very funny. When I was in Turkey one year and I saw DKNY sitting in Turkey, I go, I did not come to Turkey, yet I understand it from a business point of view. What I would say is that I hope that culturally people could grow. I just was speaking to another designer here in India, and I saw how he was able to take the artisan work that's here and keep with it and do it in his way. You know, which I think is very, very important.
But, you know, the fact still remains, and I want to ask you that has this come up at all in your interactions, and if it hasn't, what your advice would be. You met so many designers. We in India, so populated, but we still don't have a global fashion house that originates from India. Why do you think...
I think you're about to.
You
the gentleman that I just met, and I wish I remember his name, he didn't speak today, and he's showing in Paris right now.
Okay.
And I saw his clothes, and they have the soul and spirit of India. They don't look like anybody else's clothes, yet they're desired in the international market. Now, would I say that everybody would wear, you know, it's like when you see it in India, it looks so perfect, and all of a sudden you see it in New York, it's kind of a little strange.
Yeah, it is.
You know, which is totally understandable. But that doesn't mean that there is something in between that could work fantastically. You know, and I kind of find it funny when I see the younger people here in India. You can't tell the difference you don't know where they're from.
Just throwing it out there, I think the designer you were talking about was Sabyasachi.
Pardon me?
I think yes, he's one of our most popular designers in India. But, you know, in your interaction, have you felt that maybe they're all just focusing on the big, fat Indian wedding? You go into any Indian designer's boutique, it's all about weddings. Hopefully you'll have only one wedding, right? So, like, do you think they need to go out and have more?
Well, how many people do you have in this country? And you imagine every child, and every child is getting married, and your weddings are truly unique.
Yeah.
You think about everything you need for the wedding. Every person who's going there, it's a lot of wedding dresses.
It's high margin business.
There is definitely a business for that, but at the same time, you know, there is definitely I see a lot of changing happening in fashion done here in India. I love it.
Okay, on that note, let's hope we make our mark around the world when it comes to Indian fashion. Thanks a lot, Donna, for taking the time out and joining us here on CNBC-TV18. We're, of course, coming to you from the Mint Luxury Conference. With that, we're going to wrap up the special edition. Thanks for watching.